Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have a very interesting guest with me today, David, the Kiffness, who has recently lost a shed load of money thanks to some leftists following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Hi, David, how are you?
Fine, thanks for having me. It's good to be on your show.
I've obviously been covering the Charlie Kirk assassination quite a bit, and I've done quite a lot of videos on it, and I think that you and I probably share the same view of how we view the assassination.
Yeah, no, when I found out about it, obviously it shook me pretty deeply. And if you follow me on the internet, you would probably know that I'm quite opinionated and share my mind on platforms like X, but then YouTube and Instagram I normally just reserve for my Donald Trump remixes and things like that. My various remixes of animals and that sort of thing. But there was something in me that shifted when I saw what had happened, and I thought, I have to say something. Uh, as a white moderate Christian, witnessing a fellow moderate white Christian getting shot for sharing his views um, in a respectful manner, it really did shift something within me. So I thought I had to say something and just share my thoughts. And I'm grateful for guys like you as well. I think when more moderate voices kind of step up and start speaking, it gives other moderates courage. We're normally just the silent majority, the people that just want to get on with life and raise families and pay our tax and just get on with life. But it feels like the world is at a crossroads now, and we can either keep you know, on this road that we're on where people are getting more and more radicalized, or reasonable people like yourself can, start speaking and, bringing more reason to the world. So I guess that's where we're at.
Yeah, now you issued a statement on, I believe it was YouTube. I did actually watch it, where you said you don't usually do these kind of commentaries. You were going to give your views on why you thought it was horrendous, and you thought it would be the last video that you would make on it, but you felt the need to say something. Now, I believe following that, you actually, is it one of your tours that was cancelled?
So I'm on my way to Australia. I've got 3 shows coming up there. I'm in the airport lounge and yeah, about to head to Australia. That luckily hasn't been cancelled. Um, and my Europe tour is still on. So I've still got quite a few shows coming up. None of them have been cancelled, but yeah, I was working on a collaboration with a brand, overseas client, and yeah, they sent an email just saying, unfortunately, they can't work with me any longer because of certain things that I said, and they wish me well on my tour. So they haven't, specifically stated that it's because of what I said about Charlie Kirk, but uh, I'm pretty sure it's about that. So, I just sent a follow-up email just saying, could you maybe point to exactly what it is that I said that, it led you to terminate the contract? Um, and, you know, if there is a specific thing that I said that goes against your agency's values, could you please specify if it's just the agency or the brand that we're working with that share the same views? And I mean, as far as I know, I haven't said anything, radical in any way. I kind of just, mourned the loss of a guy who went around from university to university speaking his mind and debating people with courage. And I just, shared my thoughts. Um, so yeah, it is kind of part of the territory. It's not the first time this has happened where brand has dropped me. Luckily, I'm in a very fortunate position where, I make pretty decent money from YouTube and Spotify and those kind of platforms. And so I don't really, rely on brands to make a living. I know there are a lot of public figures and celebrities out there that do rely on these brand deals, and so I think that's often why you don't really hear them saying anything, even if they do have quite strong opinions. If they share them, the brands are going to drop them. So that's just how it works. Unfortunately, brands are, you know, they're known for being very risk averse and a little bit spineless, but you can blame them either. I guess, and the reason I say that is because you look at what happened with clicks and the shampoo ad that they made that led to the EFF, going around burning clixes and that kind of thing for a harmless shampoo ad. You look at H&M that had a jersey that said little monkey. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think those kind of things, when they happen, is like it's like a brand's worst nightmare. So they are just naturally risk averse. But then you have American Eagle that put out an ad with Sydney Sweeney, and they did not back down, which I think is great. It's kind of like a turning point, I think.
And she was actually one of the guests at the funeral for Charlie Kirk, and she's I think her career is just like actually taken off, and the brand is saying they've had record sales in terms of merchandise. So it does show you that I think people are kind of a little bit sick of the woke politics. But the reality is, even if we keep that discussion to one side, your statement was rather tame. So
Yeah,
I'm struggling to think. I mean, I know my statements are a lot more less tame than yours, and I don't understand what you would have said that potentially would have annoyed them. I mean, the reality is that from your side, you're not like a big mainstream political activist or analyst. Like you'll struggle to
yeah,
find loads of videos by you online that are talking about the ills of the world. I mean, I'll find lots of videos of you making cool videos around cats, and I probably watch
yeah,
far too many cat videos considering I'm allergic to cats. But that's the reality of the content that you create, and you're very successful at it. So what exactly per se could they have taken offense to? Because you're not an offensive guy. So what was the problem, do you think?
Look, I suspect it might have been the fact that I said Charlie Kirk was a good guy. Ooh,
You think
so
that's the extent
controversial.
of it?
Um, and I said, I think he held mostly moderate views, you know, very controversial. And I think, if we're honest, if someone is on the super far left, anything that is actually moderate is going to seem far right to them. And I think that's what's happening, where he held views that, you know, objectively were pretty moderate, were seen as far right. And for someone like me to, just state what they were, which is moderate views, um, I think maybe that's what made them think maybe they shouldn't work with me. I don't know. But I can only
Hmm.
speculate. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, it was a project that I feel sorry for my manager because he works hard on these contracts and makes sure that everything's in place. And then the fact that they just drop the, drop it at a point like this is a little bit puzzling. But yeah, what can you do?
Yeah, I mean, I can sense that there's a degree of disappointment in you, but I think we spoke about this earlier this morning, and as you highlighted, for as far as you were concerned, I'll regurgitate what you said to me, and that's that you're a man of principle. You'd rather work with people that hold your principles and lose some money than make some money, but work with people that just don't align with your brand ethics, if we want to call it that.
Yeah. No, I mean, we get a lot of proposals from different brands, and most of them we turn down. I like to work with brands that I would consume myself ordinarily. I don't want to like sell people something that I'd wouldn't use or consume. So yeah, like I've worked with great brands in the past, and you know, you have a great working relationship with them, and then something comes along where, again, like I feel like I'm not really saying anything radical. I'm just trying to be reasonable with what's going on in the world, and give my opinion. And yeah, they completely freak out whenever that happens. So if anyone wants to understand why their favorite celebrity or musician normally stays quiet about things, this is exactly why. You know, they
Mm.
don't want to lose their brand deals, and I can understand that. Like, I'm in a very, very fortunate position where I am my own boss and I can call my own shots, and I can say what I want without really fearing the repercussions. And it's a great place to be in. Obviously, it would have been nice to make another half a bar, but so be it. Whatever the consequence is for telling the truth, I believe is the best thing that could actually happen. And I guess that's where faith comes in as a Christian. If something, if you feel that something needs to be said, call it the Holy Spirit prompting you. I feel like it needs to be said. Often it's difficult. Often you get the sense that it might cost you a brand deal. I did get that sense that if I said something about Charlie Kirk, brands might pull out, and it happens. But you know what? At the end of the day, I think the truth is more important than any brand deal. So I'm just going to keep using my platform to spread positivity through music, and where applicable, talk about important matters like what happened to Charlie Kirk. I think it really is, it was an important event that happened. Tragic, but, for lack of a better word, a turning point.
Mm. So I think it's a massive event because for the longest time, let's call them the moderate right, has been labeled with every single slogan under the planet. They're far right, they're fascist, they're extremist, they're racist, they're xenophobic, they're Islamophobic, they're pretty much every single label that you could potentially want to give them, they have that label. And all the labels really mean is they don't have the views that we want them to have, and so they're not one of us, so they're excluded. And for the longest time, the right's kind of gone, well, it's fine. It's a battlefield of ideas. That's the liberal goal, right? We all have reasonable conversations with each other, and that in terms of having those reasonable conversations, we can say, well, the idea is I'm meant to persuade you, you persuade me. Our ideas are flexible. And I think what Charlie Kirk's exposed is that we're not playing by the same rules. They don't want to engage with us and discuss with us. What they want to do is to kill us. They want to silence us, whether that be economically, or whether it be from social media, or whether it even be to deprive you of your liberties and jail you. But now, Charlie Kirk has shown that for the longest time, we've seen cancel culture, we've seen people lose their jobs, we've seen the economic impacts on certain individuals. Nigel Farage, as you know, he lost his bank account, people have been deplatformed. But let's be honest, the ultimate effect that can occur is loss of life, and that's now happened.
Yeah.
So the reality is people don't feel they can be silenced anymore.
Yeah, there was a clip of Charlie Kirk, debating one of these college students, and this student was super aggressive. I don't know if you saw it, but he's saying you're a liar and you're racist. And then Charlie just says, "What have I ever said that is racist?" And the guy didn't have an answer.
Mm,
Um, and he walks away, and Charlie just said, "There's your typical American leftist. They call you racist, but then when you ask them, they don't have an answer." And
mm,
I related, I related so hard to that, because the amount of times I've been called a racist in the media by trolls on X, I've lost count. It's ridiculous. And then when you ask them, like, what have I actually said that is racist? They don't have an answer. They'll say, "Oh no, but yeah, he's obviously a racist. There's racial undertones. Can you
mm.
not see the racial undertones to what he's saying here?" And it's just like, they just make stuff up. So it is concerning because I think if you repeat a lie often enough, people start to believe it, you know.
That's an
I
Aussie
used to be
slogan
one of the,
from
yeah, it's
Goebbels.
it's Google's 101.
Yeah.
Um,
A lie
and I'm
repeated
ashamed,
often enough becomes the truth, he said.
yeah, I'm ashamed to say that I used to be one of those people. Even 10, 15 years ago, you know, let's use Helen Ziller for an example. She would say something about, you know, comparing South Africa to Singapore or whatever, and then all the news publications will go after her and say, you know, Helen Ziller justifies apartheid, she's a racist. And I didn't have the time or the energy to actually research what she actually said. I just
Mm,
trusted the media blindly, and I was like, okay, well, I guess Helen Ziller's a racist, and you just believe it. But I'm so grateful for platforms like X where you can go to the source, see what the person's actually said, and make up your own mind.
mm,
There's still people that don't have the energy or the time to do that. They might just be lazy and they want someone else to form an opinion for them. I reached the point, I guess, when the media started coming after me, you know, when I was making my satire stuff, and I saw how false the reports were on me. I think that was like, that's when I had an epiphany where I was like, you know, if they're lying about me, what else have they lied about? Like, what have they said about Helen Ziller that might be a lie? And then I went back to the things that I previously thought were racist, and I actually formulated my own opinion. And I thought, you know what, this is actually true. This is very reasonable and moderate, and I think that's when things started changing for me.
mm. Interesting enough, obviously, I've had articles written about myself by publications such as the Daily Friend, where they've classed me as being so right wing that actually I've gone full circle and become left wing. So you can see that the articles, the articles themselves make no sense. That's a genuine article. I'm so far right wing, I'm actually on the left. So I've gone full circle. But if you look at some of the articles that were written about Ramon when he was in the agricultural ministry, I mean that I knew of a lot of the comments that they referred to. I mean, there's the very famous statement where he says something about Bantu people being, and this is his words, not mine, so don't cancel me, but Bantu people being very right wing and Christian. The reality is he didn't actually say it. We did an interview with the Crown Prince of the Paddies, and during that interview, that guy said it. And so what Ramon
Yeah,
did is he repeated the statement that the guy said with a link to the actual full interview to encourage people to go to it. And that statement was attributed to him like forever. And it's like he didn't even say it. Like it was someone else that said it, but no one
yeah,
cared.
yeah. Yeah. I didn't know it was cherry picking season. It seems, you know, the media are having an absolute field day with the plethora of Charlie Kirk clips out there. They're essentially doing what they did to Roman and Ronaldo, taking long debates where he's conversing with people and clipping tiny bits and making him seem like this crazy right wing dude. Um, and people are just believing it. They're doing what I
Mm,
used to do, you know? So I guess all I can do is, you know, encourage people to not just look at these, you know, hyper edited, cherry picked quotes from Charlie Kirk or Roman or Ronaldo. Even when that video of Ronaldo came out where he was saying, kill the K word, kill the N word, I was like, geez. Like, I distanced myself from Ronaldo. I was like, bro, what the hell? And then he showed me the full video, and I was like, okay, this makes sense.
mm,
Like, it's pretty hectic, but it's clearly hyperbole. And, you know, they cancelled him for the very thing that he was trying to explain, which is, you know, tragic comedy in a way.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I guess this is what the media are really good at, but more and more people are cottoning on to the tricks that they play. So I guess I can only just use my own experience of being reported on falsely. Even now, like what happened now with this contract, there are trolls out there that are saying there's no ways that a South African brand would pay the Kiffness R500k for a campaign. He's lying. So now briefly put out an article with the headline, Kiffness allegedly lying for this thing. They like to use allegedly to kind of get themselves out of legal trouble. But then under my picture, there was a comment there saying the Kiffness was lying about this. So it is defamation. Um, but I just told them to remove the article. I said, "Do you really want to go down this road?" And then they removed the article. I think they got a little bit scared. So yeah, just also got to keep the media accountable when they do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think as we've said, for the longest time, we've seen many of these individuals do what they do in the media, and we just kind of shrug our shoulders. They call you names, they defame you, but the net result is that it led to the loss of an individual's life. So you
Yeah.
can't continue down this track inevitably because it has a very negative impact on individuals' lives. I mean, Charlie Kirk lost his life because of a media narrative. Let's not forget that. And I think that the mainstream legacy media at the moment are now trying to reframe his shooter or his killer as a right-wing MAGA supporter. I mean, that's the way what they're trying to do now. And the reality is he's anything but. But you see, he came from a Christian conservative home, ergo he must be a Christian conservative, even though that's not actually what he appears to have been. He appears to have rebelled against the family, taken up leftist causes, and become radicalized at university, which is the real story. But nobody really wants to talk about that. So the media is now trying to reframe it. But in terms of reframing it, it has very negative consequences. The truth appears to no longer be important to anybody.
Yeah, no, it is unfortunate, and you know, the amount of times I've been defamed where it's had very real consequences in my life, you always got to ask yourself, do you go the litigious route and waste time and energy and emotional energy into like suing these people, or do you try and counter that false information with just better information? And there's always this fine line. I've never sued anyone. There was a time in 2020 when the mayor of Ekurhuleni called me a racist, and then I lost a brand deal then. And it was a slam dunk defamation case. I could prove that I lost income because of what he said about me. So instead of suing him, I reached out to him. We had a conversation. I filmed the whole thing and I put it on YouTube. And I thought that was way more helpful than,
I remember
forcing him
that.
to apologize and
Mm.
forcing him to pay me the money that I lost. So we just got to be careful about how we approach these things. I don't think as moderates we can become bitter. I think a lot of that is happening where people who were moderate were so affected by this that they're kind of drifting further far right. And I don't want that to happen to me. I'm not a bitter person, and I don't want to become aggressive. And I see that happening. I still feel that there is a place for the moderate center and for people to keep cool heads and to stay reasonable and to just, you know, understand that if you're a Christian, persecution is part of the Christian life. It always has been, always will be. And you just got to take it. You just got to carry your cross and go with it.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at.
So I got a very interesting question for you, and that is at the time we're recording this morning, the Daily Maverick decided, in their infinite wisdom, to release an article where they basically made the allegation that Charlie Kirk was irrelevant to South Africa. What's your view on that?
I was quoted in that tweet, in that article,
I know.
um, by Rebecca Davis. Yeah, generally, I think if the Daily Maverick are telling you that someone's life was inconsequential, it means that their life was greatly consequential. I think Rebecca is projecting. I somehow feel that she feels a great sense of inadequacy, and she's projecting that onto someone who is now a martyr from a different continent, whose life means more in South Africa than hers will ever mean
Mm.
in her own country. I think that's what's happening. Or she's just being paid to write that. I don't know. One of the two.
I think she probably genuinely believes it. Because one of the things that we see with many of these leftist type publications is that they're so isolated in these kind of echo chambers of their own thoughts that they kind of like really start to believe their own propaganda.
You just got to pray for them. Pray for the Daily Maverick journalists. Pray that they see the light.
Hmm. I'd pray that the Daily Maverick closes down, but I think we have different prayers.
Look, yeah, that's also a good prayer. And I feel for the Paulie van Wyks, who's now left, and the Peter Louis Mybergs, who I really do think are doing excellent work there, whose names are being dragged through the mud because of, the nonsenses like Rebecca and I don't even know their names. Uh, Poplack, the Poplacks of this world, you know. I don't know, yeah. It makes me sad when I just see the kind of stuff they write.
Hmm.
And the fact that they're still alive tells me that, you know, there must be someone funding them to write the stuff that they do. I don't know
Hmm.
how anyone with a conscience can pay a subscription to the kind of stuff that they write, but yeah,
Big,
I don't
big,
want to.
big contribution to Daily Maverick is a lot of Soros type funding. And that's not
Yeah,
conspiracy theory. That's like literally Open Society Foundation donations to
yeah,
them to continue their publications. So we know that they are paid, but the real question is to what end? Like, is it really
yeah,
a good use of investments of monies?
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of these Soros types, I don't know what their ultimate goal is by funding these kind of publications, whether they genuinely believe that these ideas that they have about open societies and all that kind of thing are genuinely good ideas, or if there's some other kind of sinister agenda, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Hmm.
Either way, they are obviously funding publications like Daily Maverick to push whatever agenda they have. And, it's clearly doing a lot of harm
Hmm.
um, to places like South Africa, but to a less extent now where we have independent commentators like yourself, speaking rational, truthful ideas. And I think people, can get a sense for that. I think the truth is irresistible. Once it becomes clear to you what the truth is, it makes publications like the Daily Maverick just look really bad in comparison. So I think we are kind of going in the right direction in terms of, just the way that people consume media. And, people are a lot more discerning these days. Um, obviously people still believe the nonsense that the media puts out there, the sort of hyper edited, cherry picked clips of Charlie Kirk are, an example of that. So many people just see that and believe it. But yeah, what can you do?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and in your case, obviously, it's cost you financially by sticking by your principles. But I think in the long run, sticking by your principles will do you very well. Certainly, I'm sure the audience that I have will obviously congratulate you for doing that, even though it's cost you half a bar. So I myself will will extend congratulations to you on that behalf. I don't know many people that would give up half a bar for their principles, mate. So.
I don't want your congratulations. I want your EFTs, please. No, I'm joking. I've bought you coffees on Morning Shot before, so now it's time to pay back. No,
To pay
I
back the
don't need
money.
anyone's money. I don't need anyone's money, but yeah. just getting props from people that I respect is more than money could ever pay me. So thank you to you, and just yeah, so many people have reached out saying well done. So I appreciate it.
No, and I don't say that to be to be funny. Um, but no, seriously, man. Like, I don't know many people that would have just given up half a bar just for on the basis of principles. So kudos to you, man. Like, kudos to you.
Thanks, man.
I will say on a
Appreciate you.
very last topic
The
before we
compliment.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Elon actually retweeted something of yours. I don't know if you saw, but you said we are the media now. You said in relation to many individuals commented on some of the things that you said online. You said that I think somebody said you don't hate the media enough, and then you responded saying you are the media now.
Yeah, so the comment that I made was, or the tweet that I put out that Elon retweeted was, I basically said, the media keeps telling me that Charlie was a racist, a homophobe, transphobe, but I keep seeing first-hand accounts of black people, gay people, trans people, all saying that he was the nicest guy either.
Mm,
So it's so difficult to know who to trust, obviously sarcastically. And yeah, amazing that Elon retweeted it. I knew when I first looked at it, it had like a couple thousand impressions, and then when I re-looked at it, it had like a million. And I was like,
mm,
bet you Elon Musk retweeted it, and I was right.
mm,
But yeah, I lost my train of thought. I think we are the media. Um, Anyone who is bought and paid for just simply can't tell the truth. They're just trying to pay their rent and feed themselves. So you can't necessarily blame them for essentially being a propagandist or an activist or whatever you want to call them. It's their bread and butter. Um, I think the real truth is going to come from people like you and me who've already established themselves with a business, and they don't need to be paid for the stuff. We're really just doing it because we want the truth to live and thrive in this world. And you can't buy us. Like, you
mm.
can't buy our silence or our opinions. We just care about the truth. And I think that's where we're at. That's why I think so many other people who have businesses who aren't doing journalism for a paycheck are just speaking their minds because they care about the truth. So I think when people consume media, they should also have that in the back of their minds
Mm.
about where they're getting their information from.
Anyway, man, I know you're in an airport. I know we're running out of time. I can see all the people sticking their head around there, like, what's he doing? But really appreciate you taking the time to actually have a quick interview with me on your journey to the kangaroo place called Australia. I really hope you have a really good flight, and I really hope it's really positive for you, man.
Thanks, man.
Take
Appreciate
it
it.
easy.
God bless.